that's the record on, and I'm going to share my screen. If anything happens, Gary or Carol, then just contact me on my mobile, because if something goes wrong, no, I suddenly disappear. They know what I mean. Right, okay, so to the PowerPoint we must go, heel for heel and toe for toe, right? So Soundscapes of the world. So it's going to be amazing. This I've been thinking about this project for, I reckon, about 4 or 5 years. I contacted Carol about 4 or 5 years ago with and this kind of idea that was in my head about creating something. Georgia, I've had ideas about doing these things with like images about children's places that they stay, and we've tried to create something, and sometimes it's been successful or not, but now it's like, no, this we're making it real, and we're going. Gary always says to me, if I come to him with a project, we're going to make this happen. We'll make it happen, and it is. Between the three of us, we got together and we're like, we're making this happen and making it official. So basically, Gary's made my dreams come true, and Carol's been there to be able to enable things. But that's a big payback for everything I've done for him. All right. So today what we're looking at is there's going to different sections. I'm going to give an overview, a very quick overview of intercultural learning and why I've created Soundscapes of the World. Carol's going to give a little bit about outdoor learning, and Gary's going to give a little bit about museum learning. And then we are going to go into the first two activities that we would like you to do with the children. So I've broken activities down to make it manageable and easy, given enough time to do it. And with the activities, what you're going to see as well, you can do it as simple as possible, or you can take it to we've got different levels you can take it to, but it's up to you with your children which level that you would want to work with. So we've got simplistic, or we've got where you can go really to a higher level. It's there. And the two activities are going to be photography and environmental sounds. The next webinar will then go into the expressive arts ones that we're doing. And then we're going to finish with communal constructivism, how are we going to be sharing our work and how are we going to be working together to enable us to develop our knowledge together rather than just individually. So starting off with intercultural learning, a little bit of kind of a theory part of it. The reason I do intercultural learning is if we look at this model that's on here, this transitional mindset, there's many people that will have an ethnocentric mindset. And that ethnocentric mindset they have when it comes to cultures is they either is in complete denial, they don't want anything to do with the other culture. And you will see that in the news a lot. Specifically with things that are happening where we're Scottish, we don't want anything else to do with any other displaced people that are coming into our country. So it's denial, I don't want anything there. Now that then gets rubbed off onto the children because they'll be listening to the parents of what they are saying. Then we've got the polarized part of it, and that's quite a lot of people do that within schools where it's them and us. This is my culture, and this is their culture. So there's two parts to it. We're Scottish, that's what they do. So yes, it's fine. We still want to know what they do in Italy. We still want to know what they do in India. However, it's two people. They're two different cultures and they're not merging together. So we're still sticking at this ethnocentric. And that would also be if in schools, if we're thinking of doing intercultural learning, where we are just kind of looking at similarities and differences. We are not teaching intercultural sensitivity where we want them to actually have an appreciation, have an awareness, and then develop this where we could actually not do the melting pot doesn't work. So where they said that a melting pot is we get all the cultures together, they melt together and all become one. That doesn't work because you still need to have your identity of your culture that belongs to. What we want to get children is up to this ethno-relatives part, where they begin to, first of all, accept other cultures, and then they adapt to some of the things from the other cultures both ways. So it's not just one way or the other. And the final part is integration, where it's completely integrated, both cultures into one. So we've got two cultures and one culture together, and that's where it comes fully integrated. So that is how my job is. Why do I do intercultural learning with people? I also do intercultural learning with people because they've got kind of these monocultural glasses that they wear. And the monocultural glasses are glasses that are kind of very tainted and they see things only from one place. I want them to wear what we call sociocultural glasses, And by using social cultural glasses, they're seeing the world from a completely different viewpoint rather than just one single lens that they could be looking through. That's a theory done that's there. So why for the people that are new to here, the people that know me will know this kind of journey to a part, but the people that are new to here is how did intercultural learning start? Well, way back in 2001, sounds like a song, I could start here, but way back in 2001, when it just begun, I think I'm from Greece, this was when I was working in a private school in Scotland. And in the private school in Scotland, they were wearing the monocultural glasses in the classroom. They perceived, many of the children and the parents perceived the school as as a specific, as being better than anyone else that was there. So whether it was being better than all the schools in Scotland, all the schools in the area, but they still perceived everything one way. And because I had come from a different background to a private school, I wanted them to perceive things through the social cultural glasses. And also when we were learning about different cultures, so whether we did it through religious, moral, and education, and you would learn about Hinduism and Buddhism, but whilst we were going like, well, let's learn about China and do our geography part of it, I wanted to make learning relevant. And this part of there's the motivation theory, it's called the self-determination theory by Ryan and Decky. And in that theory, it talks about that you have to make learning relevant. So relevance, and you've got to give children autonomy and agency. And the relevance part of it is the key part of me is I want to make learning so they see the relevance in it and make it real rather than let's just do something for a lesson and then we move on because the real relevant lessons are the ones that stick. So it started with a bear and it was a bear like this and we called him Shugle McDougall, the Highland Coo. And Shugle McDougall, the Highland Coo, was sent to America in a box. And they sent back to us a box, a cultural box with a bear in it. And it had baseball bats, it had books from America, it had comics, had lots of different things from there. And when the children opened that box, when I could see how it transformed the learning and the motivation engagement changed, I thought this is what intercultural learning is. This is what relevance, this is what when we look at self-determination theory, it makes it real to the children. So lots of different bears went around the world. We blogged about the bears. And then I created a project. First of all, it was called Voices of the World. And that won various awards for that one. But my one that's out at the moment is called Hands of the World. I have to say it's gone back to the name Voices of the World. So we went to Hands of the World because Hands of the World uses music, it uses Makaton and sign-in so that people can preserve their linguistic identities. And that means that children can sing in their own language, or they could sign along to a language to learn another communication part of it so that we could understand one another. And we've got quite a few people sitting in here who have been part of that project. I just come up with ideas. I just put it all together. They're the ones that go and do it with the schools, like you're going to do Soundscapes with your school. You're the ones that make the project happen. I'm just the one that sits here and comes up with ideas and gets people to come along to it. So Hands of the World was very, very successful. And it was when I was out, I got invited to India in December. And whilst I was out in India, I was doing a presentation about to various universities across there about the power of music and the performing arts as a communication tool and to enable children to communicate, collaborate and connect. And that picture there that you're seeing was my husband and I had been to India before. And when I took this picture, whilst I was there, I wanted to show him, do you remember how busy, how colourful, how noisy it is when you're in a street in India like this? But sending him the picture really didn't kind of bring home what it actually sounded like as well. So what you end up doing is you take a little video, and the video gives that auditory and the visual to make the person experience it more rather than just the visual picture that's there. And that's when I came back to the project I'd spoken to Carol about many years ago to go Soundscapes Up the World. Because whilst I'm doing music inputs with students at university, we do soundscapes. And soundscapes, if you don't know what they are and haven't read about them, is when you have a picture. So we've got that picture there, but then you have the auditory that comes along with it. So the picture stays static, so that you can focus on the picture rather than a moving image one. It stays static, but when you've got that auditory of all the tuk-tuks making a noise, the people saying the sounds and that, it suddenly brings it alive. And that's when Soundscapes of the World was born. So here we are. That's how we've got to this bit. We're going to go into a little bit now about outdoor learning, then museum learning, and then we're going to say, how can we get the Soundscapes of the World started? So over to Carol. And Carol, you just tell me when to click to the next one.
Perfect, thank you. Some of you that were eagles-eyed there might have noticed I grabbed a script. It has been a day, so I do have a script to prompt me, so forgive me for that. But as Sharon said, I'm Carol Murdoch from Love Outdoor Learning. I started Love Outdoor Learning 8 or 9 years ago now. I was a teacher, I did a lot of outdoor learning, and I was moving from school to school, helping outdoor learning get established in the schools. And then once it was there, moving on to the next one, and I realised actually I could make a bigger difference if I wasn't in the classroom anymore. And that's allowed me to work with schools and universities across the world. I do a lot of work in Scotland. I've personally visited over 400 primary schools in Scotland over the last 6 academic years. We're in the 6th one now. But I've also worked with universities in America and Canada and schools in everywhere from Malaysia to Australia to Greece to Netherlands to Belgium, you name it. So it's given me so much more than I could have ever achieved as a teacher. And a school gardens vary hugely. I think that's one thing I've really realised. The school gardens vary hugely. And it is your garden we want you using. Now, if you're sitting there panicking at the moment going, I've got a concrete playground, don't have much of a garden, I'm thinking of you, Holly. Everybody has somewhere. Everybody has something. But why are we talking about outdoor learning? Can I get my next slide, Sharon? So, outdoor learning boosts well-being, focus, attainment. Research shows that children concentrate better after spending time outdoors. There's been a couple of studies done where kids were and young people, students, were allowed to spend 20 minutes outdoors prior to sitting an exam, and they tended to do better in the exam. And that wasn't just in urban environments, they did it in cities as well. And other studies, they literally just looked at a picture and it still improved your health and well-being. For me as well, one of the things we instantly get when we're outside is the physiological benefits. Now, I know if you're not used to taking a class outside, it might not necessarily feel like a good release where it's reducing your stress and anxiety, but it's doing that on a physiological level. And as a teacher, I found that was my big hook for outdoor learning. That's actually what got me into it. When my head teacher first told me how to do outdoor learning, I was not up for it, but that's a whole other story. Got business got Love Outdoor Learning now, so you can see there's been a huge journey there. But as I say, the thing that really hooked me into it was seeing the benefits for me. And there's no many things in education that benefits us as teachers, yet taking a class outdoors does. So that's why I fell in love with it. The biggest barrier here from teachers is we don't have the space. But outdoor learning's everywhere. And gardens can be big or small. The photo here, I've got to admit, there's a couple that I've grabbed from ChatGPT, but most of them here are actually from schools that I visited, from Scottish playgrounds. So if you look at the one where it says school gardens on it, that one, believe it or not, was a concrete playground. It's in the middle of Glasgow, which, if you're not in Scotland, Glasgow's a pretty busy, noisy city. The road right there is a main road. And they realised they needed a green space. So they started off with planters, and now they've got this space here. It's not perfect, but it's good. We've got container gardens that mean you can do it everywhere, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's a few tubs on the way into the school, whether it's in tyres, old sinks. There are so many ways to do it. There was a school up in Aberdeenshire, and they were wanting to create a garden so that when you walked into the school, you had that green experience. They had absolutely no money, obviously. So they collected old tyres and sinks and things like that, as I'm saying, tins, all those sorts of things, and created a garden. And it was beautiful. It was eclectic, it was messy, and it was wonderful. A lot of schools put in raised beds nowadays as well, and I'm seeing some schools where children are in wheelchairs putting in raised beds that you can get a wheelchair underneath so that those children can still experience the garden. So you've got all of that can happen, where you've got measuring growth, seasonal plant and vegetables, all sorts of things. Other schools that have just got a field have given a part of it over to a pollinator patch. So they've put wildflowers in, maybe a bug hotel if they've had time, not always. And they use that to develop biodiversity. I seen that really well done down in Dumfries and Galloway a couple of years ago. And their school was so lucky. They had such a big field, and that was it. And a field's good, but it's a monoculture. It doesn't actually offer all that much more than concrete when it comes to outdoor learning. But they'd agreed with the council that they could put a wee corner of it over to a pollinator patch. And the interest in the children and the enthusiasm in the children from doing that was amazing. A school that I worked in just close to where I am, I'm in West Lothian in Scotland, that had a sensory garden, and it started off really small, just a few plants that they could touch. The curry plant that when you crush its leaves smell really strongly curry. Um, Leaves, is it lamb's ear plant, where it feels really velvety and lovely to touch, and some hanging things, it makes sounds. And they had a beautiful sensory garden, but again, it was all done through donations and beg, steal, and borrowing, because I was really good at teachers at doing that. You've got story or themed gardens where they can link to literacy, history, or art. There was a school up in Aberdeenshire I was in, and they had created a stone garden. So you had all the usual bits and bobs in it, and then they had stones that they had donated with different engravings in it that children got to help design. And that showed the history of the area and the picts and things like that from up there, which was awesome. A lot of schools have loose parks gardens, and they forget that that's still a garden where you've got logs, stones, and often the children can create magic in it. You can see in this middle picture, I'm moving my mouse, you can't see my mouse, but you can see in that middle picture that that's a brilliant wee sensory garden. Sorry, loose parks garden where so much happens. And again, it's so simple and free. If you're really, really lucky as a school, you might have a wee woodland or a mini forest space. In Scotland, we've got the wee forests movement happening, which is really awesome. So you might be really lucky and have that. And one school I was in Edinburgh, the vertical garden here, they didn't have space in their playground. It was a very small concrete only playground in the middle of the city, far too small for the number of children that were in that school. But they wanted to do gardening, and they worked out if they put vertical gardens in, it reduced how much watering they needed to do, but it gave that opportunity as well. And what was really nice is when I was in at break time, seeing the kids going and picking from the vertical gardens, it was beautiful. So really what I'm trying to say here is, whilst this project's looking at gardens, we don't expect you to have an all singing, all dancing garden. It might just be a little bit of greenage as you go into school, like that bottom picture. It might be something more exciting. But whatever it is, it's going to work for this project. And if you want to develop your gardens more as well, I'm more than happy to have conversations about that with you. Sharon, can we get the next slide, please? So why outdoors and why outdoor sounds? Why do they matter? Obviously, you've seen this topic. You've seen what the theme is. It's soundscapes. And the outdoors is alive with sounds. If you sit outside for any length of time in a natural area, you will hear buzzing bees. A little bit less at this time of year. It's more angry wasps where I am at the moment. But there's definitely the rustle of leaves, the hum of traffic, children's voices, occasionally a digger. But you go outside and you hear all these sounds. And when we tune into sound, it sharpens our observation. It helps build children's vocabulary and creates opportunities for science, literacy, expressive arts, and so much more. Really, when we properly start using sound, it can support every single curricular area. A recent BBC report highlighted that traffic noise pollution can actually harm children's health and development. Constant traffic noise raises stress levels, disrupts sleeps, and makes it harder to concentrate. Man-made noise has also been linked to increased anxiety and delayed language development. But if you think back to that school in the green space in the centre of Glasgow, their green space was right next to a busy road. But they were slowly building up, and now it's got some trees and what have you along the back and some willow, so it grows nice and fast. And it's starting to build that little bit of a barrier so it reduces the sounds. And it makes such a difference to the children and how they can learn. But in contrast, soundscapes rich in natural sounds, bird song, the wind in the trees, the running water, they're deeply restorative and they're so good for our health and well-being. I know if I'm having a really stressful day, and I'm really lucky, my cabin where Zoe and I are is in the woods. And so if I'm having a stressful day, I can go outside. But there's some days where I don't have 2 minutes to go and sit on the deck in. So I'll pull up a YouTube video of a natural space with the sounds, and it calms my nervous system, it improves my mood, and it supports my focus. It does the same for kids. I used it as a teacher as well back in the days when I was a teacher. And if my class, especially if it was a wet playground day, I don't know if the whole world has them, but we have them in Scotland, where if it's too wet outside, the children stay in. Just showing them a quick clip of natural space and natural sound would make the world difference. So when schools bring soundscapes into their outdoor space, they're not just adding interest, they're directly supporting children's health and well-being and their ability to learn. Can I have my next slide, please, my love?
Yes, can I jump in there?
Of course
Okay,
you
so I
can.
think it's probably a good point. So there's this kind of outdoor sounds part of it, and I think Carol's really done the importance of the outdoor sounds and the health and well-being aspect of it. But actually, that bit of sitting in the moment and listening to the sounds that are there. Now, the reason that I have created the Soundscapes project, going back to my music part of it, is in music, when we listen to a piece of music, the music is layered of different sounds. So if you were to listen to Ed Sheeran or Lewis Capaldi singing, you would be you'll be mainly listening to his voice because you wouldn't be listening. Many people will not be picking out the bass, will not be picking out the guitars, the drums. They get that top level sound that's there, but there's many layers happening. If you're listening to Harry Potter and blah, da, 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 dum, ba, da, dum, you're like, okay, you're listening to the melody, whether it be a horn player that's playing. So it's a French horn player that plays that at the very beginning. But that French horn player will be accompanied by other instruments in the orchestra to give layers to the sound. Now, when we go out into the environment, this is where the layers of the sound are, because within that environment part of it is that if you're when you stop and listen, if you're in a busy street, and let's say, first of all, you hear someone's got high heels on and we've got the clickety feet going past, and that's the loudest sound that's there. That's happening. But at that sound, so that is the man-made sounds that we're going to be, and Carol's going to speak about that a little bit later, but that's kind of a man-made sound. But whilst the man-made sound is there, you're also hearing the natural sounds because there'll be wind, there'll be rain that's happening. And then you also hear the sounds of the birds are there. But sometimes when human sounds come in, it stops the natural sounds from happening. Yeah, the rain and the wind will still possibly still be heard, but the sounds of the birds might become quieter because no, it's that freeze. We've got humans about and we're not going to be there. So whilst I was thinking about the sounds in the environment, what we have now. So let me say if I were to take a school in a busy urban place, so where they've got lots of cars going about there, if they're taking a picture of their garden area and they've got lots of cars, people outside talking, lots of things happening, like that India scene, then there's going to be a big cacophony of noise coming with a beautiful outlook that could be there. And then if I go to a rural school, that's some of the ones that we have in Scotland, and within their beautiful setting, and in that setting, you're going to have the lovely sound of nature at the same time. Taking that, I wanted to share all our different soundscapes from around the world. But what could then be happening is think about in 10 years' time, that place that was the busy street, the busy school area that's in the centre of a city, and we've got all the hubbub that's there. We're getting more places where cars are not coming into the city centre. We're getting electric cars that are going there. So you're actually creating a time capsule of this is what this sounds looks like and sounds like now. It could look the same in 10 years' time, but it could sound different because we're now more aware of noise pollution that's happening. However, that one that was in the rural environment, where it had the beautiful rural sounds that were there, then suddenly it becomes an industrial area 10 years' time. It becomes an area that's a park and ride that's beside it. And we've got then more noise pollution. So it's going to either go one way or the other, where the noise pollution will get better or it's going to get worse, but you are creating a moment of history and capturing it for your area in your school at this moment of time. And I think that's a wonderful thing to actually tell children whilst they're part of this project. They're part of capturing history and creating a sound capsule of their area. Right, okay, back to you, Carol, sorry.
Thank you, my
Next.
love. Next slide. And the next one is, why did I get involved, really? And you summed it up there. When Sharon told me what she's just told you about creating that moment in history, that got me excited. Right away, to me, that's a PhD project. In 5 years, 10 years' time, what can that tell us about how schools have changed over over the decade? It could be in itself something huge. It could be something magical. And if you get the opportunity to get involved with something huge and magical, you're going to take it, aren't you? So as soon as Sharon said that, I was all in. And it is tricky at the moment. We're all really, really busy and trying to get time. But as soon as she told me that, I was all in and making the time for it. And for me, I do believe outdoor learning is everywhere. And I think this project helps bring that to the fore. From forests and fields to tarmac and courtyards, outdoor learning can happen in every single space. And this project is a beautiful chance to show just that. By exploring school gardens and soundscapes, we're helping schools see even the smallest of space can be transformed into places of creativity, wellbeing, and connection. If the only thing you've got in your school is a garden, as one wee planter out the front door, that still shows outdoor learning. The magic can still happen in that tiny, tiny little space. I first discovered this as a teacher. I saw firsthand how much calmer and more engaged the children were when we stepped outside. Pupils who struggled indoors found their voice outdoors. There was a wee boy I had in a primary 3 class, and we'll call him Thomas. And Thomas was a wee Scottish boy. And he was your reluctant writer. So primary 3, you're 7 or 8 year old at that stage. Looking at Zoe just to double check. And reluctant writers, we've all had them. The wee one that will not even put their name on a bit of paper. Never mind anything into a jotter. And we were outdoors one day. And that school I was really lucky. I had a wee woodland there. And we were outside and we were doing a poem using our senses. I see, I hear, I smell. And he came over to me. He's like, Miss, how do I spell the word excellent? And I had a moment where I could either tell him it because he's trying to do something and like, let's keep on going, or I could take the gamble and tell him to go and sit down and try and sound it out. And I told him, go and sit down and try and sound it out. Now he had a writing frame, so it had the I hear, and then he had to write the rest. I smell and the rest. I see and the rest. And by the time he finished this lesson, he had a 5-line poem. A kid that wouldn't even put his name on a bit of paper had a 5-line poem. And he used the wind to say, I hear the excellent wind. Now, the grammar's no brilliant there, but he had a 5-line poem. And for him, that was amazing because thereafter, I could use it as a hook. That was on the classroom wall. That was to the head teacher. That was celebrated in the assembly. We shouted about that. Because from then on, I could encourage him and say, but I know you can do magic. Think of your poem. And I tried everything indoors to try and get him to write, and it just didn't happen. And yet, taking him outdoors, it removed some of the barriers to learning. And it shouldn't be a privilege just for some children and some teachers. It should be possible for everyone. So that's why I'm involved in this project, to break down the barriers and show that every school, regardless of setting, regardless of what country they are, regardless of what screen space they've got, can give children the benefits of outdoor learning, improve focus, reduce stress, stronger curriculum links, deeper connection to the world around them. What I support here with, as a business, we've got hundreds, over 400 lessons, things like that. We provide training, coaching, free curriculum. I might not have been a teacher for the last few years, but I'm in schools every single week. Today I've been in 2 schools. I see what's happening, what teachers need on the ground, and that allows me to be able to support and create resources that are really meaningful and help them with that. So, key takeaways today to wrap up from me. Remember that outdoor learning is accessible for every single school. Gardens come in many forms, from tubs to vertical walls, loose parts or mini woodlands. Next slide, please, my love. Soundscapes, deepen connection, sport, health and wellbeing and learning. And Love Outdoor Learning is here to make it practical, sustainable and fun. I wanted to finish off with this picture. This is a school, tiny wee school up in Aberdeenshire, right on the coast, and quite an area of multiple deprivation, quite profoundly. And this is their playground. And a lot of folk would look at that playground and go, you can't do high quality good outdoor learning there. They've got a trim trail and concrete, and that is it. They do amazing outdoor learning there because the space doesn't really matter. Outdoor learning comes down to attitude. So you can have a little postage stamp of concrete and still make magic happen.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much for that. So there we go. So that's why we're using the outdoor learning spaces, because it doesn't matter what we have out there. It's a place where we could learn, and it's a place where children can go. We're not confined always to the four walls of the classroom within there. So now we're going to go over to Mr. Adidas, Gary, and he's going to go through museum learning and why we have now. So we've incorporated outdoor learning and cultural learning, and now we're doing museum learning is going to get connected with it too. Right, Gary, so I'll put you onto your slide.
Thanks, Sharon. Hi, everybody, again. If you've just joined or you were late, my name's Gary Jamieson. So I'm the Skills Development Officer at V&A in Dundee, Victoria and Albert Museum. We are the only Victoria and Albert Museum outside London, and the post that I hold as a Skills Development Officer there, it's actually a seconded post. So I'm a primary school teacher normally. I've been working at the V&A for the last 3 years on my 1 year secondment. So it just keeps getting extended year on year, which I'm delighted about because I totally love my job. But I came into teaching quite late. I started uni when I was like 30. No, you wouldn't believe it. Been teaching for over 10 years now. But I love it, and it's just the reason I went back to uni to do teaching was really I wanted to make sure I was kind of giving back and giving children or young people the best possible start in their life, and kind of making sure that other people were doing that as well. So the role I've got at the moment really does help in that way, that I can kind of oversee, because I'm working with learners from all over the country, because we're a national museum, and I'm working with learners of all ages now, so from babies right through to adult learners, getting the experience of working with all these people. And just yesterday, I was doing a talk for developing the young workforce, and we were talking about exactly that, just giving as many different experiences to our young people as possible, so that can open doors. But it's more than that for me. It's about, yes, it's about showing them the different pathways that are there, but it's about actually, you know what, you can build your own pathway. You can build bridges on your pathway. You can build a tunnel on your pathway if you want. Just, go for it, because the more and more that you put in front of children and the more experiences that they get, the more they could see the world. And that's so important, especially now that, we don't know what kind of future that these kids are going to have, or what, they don't even know what jobs are going to be available. But if we build the right skills, and they can transfer those skills into any field of work. But yeah, so that was me kind of on a wee rant there, sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking a bit more about museum-based learning and how that can kind of fit in with this project. Thanks for changing the slide very quickly, Sharon, to get me off that tangent. I'm going to start with a question. So it's, why would we take children to a museum? And when I think back, my earliest memories of being maybe 3-4-year-old were going to museums with my gran, and I could remember like walking into these places and just being in awe, because they had everything, and it was huge, and it smelled amazing, and it was like it just brought things to life for me. And the reason we went there with my gran, we were quite poor at the time, so museums they were free. They were free spaces to go, and my gran was old. She wouldn't take me to swimming or anything like that other grannies might do, and or to the park. She was, quite immobile and things by that point. But a free museum with all these, stories in it was amazing. And she would tell me stories of, her past and how that would relate back to her, and it was great. So museums, they're more than just buildings and objects. They're spaces for curiosity. They're things to spark imagination and connection. So when you take your children into these spaces, real artifacts, they engage everything, multiple senses, and making learning really tangible and memorable for them. Like I say, I mean, me thinking back at 4 year old, that's over 40 years ago, and I could still see myself in that space. And research shows that handling and observing authentic objects really does deepen the understanding, spark critical thinking, and encourages collaboration in children. Next slide, please, Sharon. And the experience that I've had working in the V&A for the past 3 years and working on real, excellent projects really with amazing children. These artifacts do tell stories. They connect us to people, to places and ideas across time, not just the past, but the future as well. And Sharon mentioned earlier about changing these mindsets. There's so many stories within museums that can do that. A lot of museums are starting to think about how they are decolonisation. They're changing their stories to reflect that as well, which I think is a very important point to make as well as we're going through this. Museums make abstract concepts concrete. They develop observation and questioning skills, and they foster empathy by imagining lives beyond the object. And probably most importantly, it's inclusive. Like many children, like Carol touched upon, they come in, to the cultural world for the first time through their school trips. And we worked with a primary school in Dundee just a few months back, just before the summer actually. And they were in the museum for 3 days in a row, working on a project with me called the School Museum. So it was like a kind of residency program, and there was 2 boys within that group who were receiving one-to-one behavioural support in the classroom. And for those 3 days that they were there, you would never be able to pick out who those 2 boys were. And the head teacher phoned me after the 3 days and said, "Oh, how did you get on with so and so and so and so?" And I had to say to her, I said, "I don't even know who you're talking about," because, like, and then she mentioned their name, and I was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, he was a leader in that group, and they were just amazing for those 3 days that they were there." Next slide, Sharon.
That is your next one. Creative
you.
art.
So how do we take it further? So creative arts, when children respond artistically through drawing, drama, or sound, they move from passive observation to real active creation. This helps them process what they've learned and express it in personal and imaginative ways. And you know what? It doesn't even need to be museum learning. It just needs to be something different, something beyond the walls of the classroom, like going out into your garden. It could be going to the supermarket. It could be something as simple as just having a walk down the street and just getting those different environments and reacting to them. Next slide, Shan. Okay, so why are we involved in this? Why V&A Dundee involved in this? So V&A Dundee is Scotland's first design museum, and we are really dedicated to creativity and innovation. And I think this project really is testament to that. It's creative and innovative. That's easy to say at this time of night. We offer, through our schools programme at V&A Dundee, we co-design with teachers covering themes from fashion to architecture. And these sessions are free, and we can cover a portion of travel. So if you live in Scotland and you want to come to us, get in touch with us and we can provide a school trip. And if you mention that you've been on this webinar, it'll be completely free, because I'll make sure we'll pay all your travel, not just a portion of it, okay? Learning spaces that we've got at V&A, we do hands-on workshops or bespoke learning sessions tailored to your needs. So if you're doing a specific project at school, whether that is through a visit or through an online session, if you're a bit further afield, we do have digital access to our resources and virtual exhibitions. So if you can't visit in person, you can still engage with us through them. And if you do get in touch with me and ask me to do anything related to your educational needs, I will do it for you. And I'm not shy of jumping into projects that I don't have time for. So I just make the time to make it happen, as Shannon very well knows. Next slide. Just going to wrap it up. So key takeaways from this. So museum learning through artifacts really does enrich understanding and spark curiosity in children. And through the creative arts, especially soundscapes, we can turn observation into expression. We at V&A Dundee were a fantastic resource, and I'm not just saying that because I work there. It really is a fantastic resource. I used it as a resource before I was here, so I'm really testament to that. And we are there for you, so we're your resource. We won't preach anything apart from design. Okay, we will make things happen for you. So next time you're planning any creative project, think beyond the classroom walls and think about us and how we can help you.
Okay, so thank you, Gary, for sharing that for me. And I've just got a couple of things. Why did I ask Gary to be part of the project, and why have I got museum learning in here? Well, first of all, thank you, Gary, for saying it's the most creative and innovative thing that you've ever seen. Thank you. I will take a gold star for that. But then the part about why is the museum now suddenly part of this project? And the reason being is when I was thinking about the project, I'm always thinking about what is the end product going to be and how do we make it relevant? So it's relevant in the fact that, yes, we've got all the countries together, and yes, we will place it onto an online Padlet page where it's collaborative, and we'll share the soundscapes that the children are creating, and that's fine. That's okay. That gives it a little bit relevance that's there and gets us collaborating together. But the real relevance, if you then say to children, and I'm going to use a word that some schools might not use, but to say to them, you're going to be putting your soundscape at an exhibition, right? So that was my first thought about it. And saying to a child, what we're going to be creating is going to an exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum. That's a part where it's like, so whatever we do, we can be chosen to have our soundscapes placed there, and the soundscapes from around the world. And at the same time, there will be people in other parts of the world who will also be exhibiting your work and their work at the same time. So suddenly they have this output. Now, when we say you can use the word exhibition if you want, but with the V&A, we're saying we're showcasing the work that they're doing rather than exhibition. To give you just quickly what's going to happen at our side of it is when the soundscapes are finished. So the soundscapes, a brief overview of the soundscapes. It starts off, lesson 1's photography. The children take pictures of their garden environment, and that garden environment can be in the school area that's there, or there might be some people that might go for a walk and do one that's kind of in a bit more of a local environment that's there. So they will decide for the schools that's there. So lesson 1 is photography. Lesson 2 is all about the environmental sounds. So we're going to be speaking about that. So it's about going and listening to the different layers of sounds and types of sounds that's there, and just being in the moment and hearing those sounds and recording them. We'll explain that to you. Lesson 3 is then going to be the next webinar. And this is where we're then using the expressive art. So at the moment, the children will have a picture that they've taken, and they've decided in the class, everyone can take pictures, but they've decided, and the dog will decide as well, but they will take a picture so that's going to represent their garden area. And at the moment, in their minds, they know the sounds that go with the garden area. Then the next part of the project is, right, okay, we now have to represent these sounds in an auditory format and a visual format and a kinesthetic moving one. So the first lesson is the music lesson, whereas the sounds that they have taken and that they've recorded, they will then recreate them using, and I'm going to teach you how to do this in webinar 2, is how they could recreate them using body parts and parts in the classroom. They can't use digital and they can't use musical instruments. And so it's all untuned that they're using. So it's for everyone from preschool all the way through to secondary, because they will take it to whatever level they want. And they're going to recreate the sounds of this auditory score of their environment with the different levels. So now we've got an image, and now we've got their auditory sounds. And believe me, they will sound like it's real sounds, that when you look at the image, and then the image after 5 seconds, the sounds will come on, will bring it alive. It's that part bringing the picture alive. And then the next 2 parts are then actually voluntary. So you can do these parts if you want, but if you want to add the extra expressive arts in there, is then we're going to give a lesson, and we've got Zoe that's sitting there with Carol at the moment. And Zoe's going to, who's agreed to do it, is going to do like, well, you've got the picture, you've got the sound, take that picture away, and now we're going to do a piece of abstract art that goes with the sound. It's not a case of just taking the picture and making it look abstract and putting a lot of paintings to it. It's about listening to the sounds and then going creating abstract art that goes with there. We'll give you a lesson of how to do that. So you can do that one if you want. And then the other one that's optional as well is then contemporary movement, contemporary dance. So some schools might think, oh, if I say the word dance, the children won't like it. If we go movement, but what they're going to do is they're going to listen to that sound again, and just like the abstract art, where we've created a piece of art to go with it, now you're going to have a piece of a 5-second of movement, body movement, dance or movement that's contemporary, that goes with the sounds that they have heard. So the finished product, if someone was to do the whole thing, would then be 5 seconds of a picture. The next 5 seconds will be the picture and the audio that goes with it. The next 5 seconds will be an abstract picture and the audio that goes with it. So the audio staying there. And then the next 5 seconds will still be the audio, but there will be an abstract dance movement that will go there. So dance or movement that's there. So that will be the country representing themselves through all the expressive arts as a soundscape. And then it will go to the next country. Now, can you imagine going to the V&A? There's going to be a dedicated day at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So we're not sure if it's 1 or 2 days, but Gary's going to confirm that. And maybe not today, but it will get confirmed. Right, 2 days. Right, so we've got 2 days. That will be shared. And on those 2 days, people who come from around the world to go to the museum, there's going to be a huge screen. There's going to be seats sitting there. And on a loop will be all our soundscapes playing for the world and children and schools and everyone to learn what does it look, sound, and the visual part of it. In your area, where you stay, you can do it in a school hall. So you could have or even in the entrance hall, so people could come in and see it within there. You can get a local church hall or a local church and do it there. You could ask your local museum. So we're trying to do it all at the same time, is that we will have the whole file, the video file of all the soundscapes. We'll share it with you, and then you get to then do an exhibition in your country as well. Agreed with, as I say, it could be within your school or it could be without your school. So you take it to whatever level that you want it to be, but it's about exhibiting what we're doing and making children's work become real and relevant. Now, I do realise that we have been talking a lot, and that's now an hour that we've been here. So we're going to be really quick. So right, Carol, we're going to just do a brief outline of the simplest way to do the lessons, but we're going to then also show you where there is information about the lesson plans so that you can take it further if you want to do it. So you could do simple or you could do big. Right, Carol, you're going to speak. No, Gary, you're going to do this one quick.
Yeah, I'll just be
I'll
very,
put it on
very
the
quick on
screen.
this. Yeah, perfect. So a photography lesson is there. It's a guide for you. It's not something that's prescribed that you need to follow it by rote. Just look at it, take bits out of it, add bits onto it. You know how it'll work for your setting, but there is something there for you to go through. Um, Curriculum links are all on there. There is resources on there and wider skills. Also, some meta skills. So if you want to stick it in your planning documents and things like that and get a wee gold star from your SLT, then you do that as well. But learning objectives, they're all there. So understand how photography can tell a story or represent a feeling, explore the garden, take photos, of course. Begin to connect the visual and audio elements in a creative way. So I've got a little warm up, so discussion with the pupils. What sounds do you hear in the garden? Very self-explanatory. How do these sounds make you feel? Can you imagine what a sound looks like, which is a bit more abstract? So you can maybe give examples of a buzzing bee might be shown by a close-up of a flower, or wind might be shown by the trees or the leaves. When you look into the basics after that, so I put four, I suppose, four concepts there: framing, focus, lighting, and perspective. And there's a little bit about each of them. And then going on a photo hunt around your garden as well. So you might go and find something that makes a quiet sound, something that moves when it's windy, something that chirps, buzzes, or rustles. Take a photo of something that looks peaceful or noisy, and you can add to that as well. So, you can add about countless things to that, but that's certainly a start for you there.
Okay.
And then come back into the classroom, do a bit of reflection, maybe choose one or two photos to share and ask the pupils to discuss. And then I've got some extension ideas there for you also.
Okay. So if you've got all that there is a lot of, you could make 1-2 lessons out of just photography. And there's lots of different information, whether you're looking at experiments and techniques of it, you're looking at, as Gary says, at the actual parts of framing, lighting and perspective. And as much as we've got in here the additional things that are saying, like, well, find me a picture of something that's quiet, find me a picture that makes a loud noise, find me a picture that goes on for a long period of time, that bit there. These are extension ones, because at the end of the day, the key thing that you're going to be doing is that you're going to be creating, we just want one picture from you. Right, so we just want one picture of your garden environment. So that could be, if that's all the time you have, make sure you've got a good picture of that garden environment. But if you're wanting to make a lesson out of it, which would make it richer, then this information is sitting here. It's sitting on the Voices of the World website, but we will be sharing it in the link and sending it out to the email for everyone to get that. So it's up to you. You know your class, you know your time and what you can do with it. By the end of the day, you could have one picture taken from the whole class, or everyone's taken lots of different pictures, and then it's a case of let's choose the one that we think is going to represent our school to be exhibited at a museum around the world, right? Because that's the most important part. It's not just about going out, let's quickly get a picture. It's about getting the best picture that's going to represent our environment that's there. Okay, so you've got that part. They've gone out and taken that. Now, at the same time, this kind of lesson can go in conjunction with this so you could do all that learning and do lots of photography things, take the picture, and then we go to lesson 2, which is the sounds of the outdoor environment. Now, you can marry both of them and make them a lesson together, or you could do them separately, that bit there. So Carol, under what we've got underneath sitting the information, we've got the Soundscapes outdoors, a similar lesson planned, it's there. I'll just scroll up slowly, Carol, and you're going to do it in a nutshell, okay?
Yep, in a nutshell, it's getting your kids outside and listening. It's getting them listening to the sounds made by living things, birds singing, insects, dogs barking, children playing, etc. What do children notice? It's listening to Sharon, I know you'll tell me if I'm saying this wrongly, the geophony. the natural non-living sounds, so the wind in the trees, the rain, the rivers, the waves, the thunder, the footsteps on gravel, and then finally listening for the human-made sounds. So it's listening to those 3 different levels of sounds. You can then introduce things like pitch, volume, amplitude, tempo, rhythm, timbre, duration, directionality, all sorts of things. So you have got loads of ideas in here on how to do it. It's written as a lesson plan. That easily can be multiple lessons, or it can be going out and just creating, using technology to create that one short clip that you can use. Thinking about different times of day as well, because what a school playgrounds and garden sounds like first thing in the morning could be very different from lunchtime, end of the day. So it's thinking about different times of day that you want to use it as well. But yeah, that's really short and brief and incredibly brief, Sharon, but that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, now here's me going back to my head of the project. We've got lots of things there that you can do. But the key thing that I'm wanting the children to do, so you could take the lesson and create lots of lessons. So I'm thinking of children in the early years, so preschool, and in the early years, you could be going out and going, instead of we're going on a bear hunt, we're going on a sound hunt. We're going to find a big sound. And you're going out and you're getting them listening to the sounds of the environment. But this part here, at this moment in time, is I want them to go out and sit, and I want them to note down all the different sounds that they're hearing. And if you're in with children that are in the upper stages in school or in secondary school, this is where you can create a grid where it would have, as Carol was saying, we've got different types of sounds. So we've got biophony, we've got the geophony, and we've got the anthrophony sounds. So that's a human-made sound. It's sitting there. So you'd be saying, well, what are the different types of sounds we're hearing whilst we're here? You could be creating sound grids of in 30 seconds, what do you hear? And then they could be noting how long does it go for the whole length of time of the 30 seconds, or does it come in a specific part? But I need them to go out, listen. And in this first lesson, they will not be recreating the sounds. It's all a listening and appreciation of the environment. And they have to record it using, it could be a phone, it could be an iPad, but they could be using an audio device to record the sounds that they need, because they will need that for their music lesson. All right. So you can do it as one, go out and take a picture, listen to the sounds. That's it done. Okay. And it's recorded. That's all you do. Or you can take it to whatever level you want. Our next webinar is not until the end of October. So you really have until then to be able to get this part finished, so that you will have a picture and you will have a recording at this moment of time. So one picture and one recording is all that we are going to need by the end of this part here. But you could do as much learning as you want, and I'm going to explain where we can share all the rich learning that you're going to do. So very quickly, going back to my slides. Right, so you've got your 2 lessons. So you've got photography and you've got your environmental sounds, but you can combine them together, or you could make it as big as you want. It's up to you. But the communal constructivism, so you've probably heard of social constructivism, where we have children where they learn from one another, Vygotsky, and it's that kind of person facilitating learning. But communal constructivism is, and this is where Voices of the World has been very successful. It's never been just my knowledge. Okay, I'm there as a facilitator. I'm there that's bringing my knowledge. But when I work with Georgia and Christina and even that, I ask them, they come in with things, with other information. They come up with ideas that can come to the project. So that communal constructivism, when we create a community of practice, we've got many people bringing together the knowledge that they have to create new knowledge, whether it's with another person or create new knowledge together. So this is what I want to happen, is the children to feel it's not, I'm just placing something up online and sharing it. I want the children and the teachers, because they're important too, to do this communal constructivism together. So my plan is what I'm going to do is we'll be giving you a link to a Padlet page, and you will all have a column each in this Padlet page. And in this Padlet page, you will then put your pictures, you will put the audio. So lesson 1 and lesson 2, you will put your information onto that page, right? So that's the first part of it in your column, and any additional things that you do. I am then going to group you into groups of 4 teachers. Okay, so 4 schools will go together. Got quite a lot of Scottish schools, so you're going to maybe get an India school, you'll get a couple of Scottish, and a European school will go in there. And I'll make sure that the people who have been in the Voices of the World project, there'll be one of them in each of the groups that I'm going to create, because to me, they're the experts in intercultural learning. They've been doing this for a long time. So they're going to be your facilitator. They don't know that yet, but now they know that they're listening, the ones that are here at the moment. So they're going to be a bit of an expert in there. You'll get told what group you're going to be in by the end of this week. The Padlet page will be shared. And then that means that you could then start placing, as you work with the children, the ideas, the things. No pictures of children are allowed on there because it's going to be a public page. So no pictures of children must be there for GDPR. But you could place your things in there and get children to start commenting, asking questions within that area. And if you want to meet up with the other schools and do an online and find, just to take the project wherever you want it to go with the other schools, then that will happen. I will also try and make sure that the different age groups that we have, that we try and match those age groups together too, but there will be crossovers in the age. But to me, I think that's not a problem. So that's all in a nutshell. I hope now, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, that you're still all here. Is it for you? You still want to be part of my project? Not my project, our project. So Soundscapes of the World, are we going for it? Yes, okay. Now we're all there. Do you have any questions that you want to ask? It's because it's completely different from before, right? Or you could get even in the chat box, just type something, tell me, what do you think about it all, even if it just sounds interesting, but what do you think? And we will take it from there. We'll get things moving. Gary's looking forward to seeing it all. That's good. Thanks, Gary. I'm excited. Oh, 5 years. Thank you.
Just to say as well, for the Scottish schools, Sharon, if they, already, like, I know Zoe is going to use the local library to do their school exhibition to show everybody. So if there's schools in Scotland or England that are doing that, let us know, because I love travelling, and if I can, I will come and visit and see it, and get involved and see what the kids have done and talk to them and see the magic. So share these things with us.
Right, now asking, how busy does the picture have to be? Because I showed a busy picture, you are showing a picture of your world. And we want the worlds to be seen as whether they're busy or whether they're peaceful and quiet places. So the children are choosing, that's why you've got to decide what time of day do the children want to represent that true place. How do they perceive? Do they see their school, if it's a school garden, do they see it as a nice calm place? Or do they not see it as a calm place because of when it's playtime, we've got all the noise and that's the time when they're in it? Or do they go out to outdoor learning using it in quiet times that's there? So you've got to work with the children and find out when is the right time to do it. And even if they go out and it's only the birds and the wind that's there, they will be able to recreate them. We're going to be looking at something in the next one. And if you want to have a quick look before the next time, it's called the Honda Civic Choir advert. So the Honda Civic, so it's a car, Honda Civic, and the choir advert. We're kind of modeling how I teach how to create sounds from there. It's excellent video. It's adults doing it, but it shows how you can recreate something using facial parts, auditory parts, and body movements to recreate the sounds that are there. So picture doesn't have to be busy. It can be nice and simple, right? Does that sound okay for everyone? Wonderful. Right. I will now then, tomorrow, my day is finished now. I will now send information tomorrow to our group email that we have, and we will get you all working together in groups and have this project started. Exciting. Thank you so much, everyone, for always being part of the projects we do. And thank you. Now, I'm just going to say just as well, so Carol, if you're needing, as Carol will help people if you're thinking, oh, I'm triggered to be able to do something about outdoor learning, I want advice, I want to think about things, get in touch with Carol. And Gary, as much as you're saying schools in Scotland could come free and visit the V&A, Gary will also work with schools around the world if they're suddenly like, you know what, we want to do something to do with museum learning or the things that are happening. So look up the V&A Dundee and the thing. So it is garden design at the moment, but it changes all the time. And with that, then Gary would be able to then bring the V&A to your classroom digitally. There you go, Gary. I've done that for you. Okay. Right. So thank you, everyone. We're going to stop recording now. Yay. And